Sounds in. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are, and welcome to another session of Revit Radio. I'm Brian. That is Melissa, wherever she is, not sure. We're here to discuss all things Revit and any other question you want, but we just probably don't have answers to those that are at least legit. So for those of you who haven't been here before, see a few new names. When you start looking at this is a session that is all about the questions you ask. We do have the question and answer pod there. Please put your questions in there because if you don't, then we might skip over in between all the heckling that people are going to give us in the chat when we give horrible answers. So feel free to say hello. Feel free to jump into the webinar chat for anything else. But if it is a question, makes our lives much easier if you guys can put them in the question and answer pod. So with that said, since there's no questions, I had a question for the audience on what they prefer. And I pulled Melissa into this a while last week or so because I came up with what I thought was a brilliant idea. And then I couldn't decide if it was a brilliant idea when I second guessed myself. So I'm going to zoom in, and this is more for the architects in the room. I do see we have some MEP people and some structural people on here. But so one of the questions, or one of the beautiful thoughts that I had, I'm going to turn my floor off real quick here, is my door family has always had, if I just go grab the align command, oops, not what I wanted. My door family has always had built into it a reference plane in the middle of the leaf for modeling floor materials. And you actually see I've even given a name. It's called floor material transition. So that way, if I have interior clients, they want to start modeling it, they have something to draw their line to when they're drawing using their little pick lines tool to draw where they want that finished floor to go to. I've always had that in there. I've had no problem with it. Well, my next brilliant idea was, hey, in my door, I want to go ahead and add a couple voids. So if you have a finished material, you can just use the cuts geometry tool for that area. So what I meant by that is right now you can see I've modeled this wall coming across, and this wall is great. It all looks cool, and it's being cut at the door. I'm going to go ahead and uncut this real quick. Oh my God, I'm so not used to the new icons in 24. Cut is over here. I'm going to go say uncut. I'm going to go ahead and uncut this by the door. So normally what you can do is you can model a wall in front of this, and that's all fine and dandy. And then you can use the join tool to join one wall to the other, and that will start to go through, and it will join the walls, and the opening will cut through that wall. So when I say the opening, inside that family, I'm going to go back to level 1, where I have the opening cutting the door, which happens to be along this line right here, it's cutting that finished tile wall right here, all right? That's fine and dandy for most like tile walls that are thinner than the thickness of the door. But in a scenario like this one where I've added a cap on there, what happens is it cuts at the opening and now my little cap happens to go through. Or God forbid, we go in and have a very large piece of trim or wood or whatever finished kind of things. We go through there, it's going to also stick through there. So I thought I was being brilliant. Again, I'm going to go ahead and just unjoin these two. And I'm like, oh, why have I not simply added, grab the wall, not the door. Why have I not added the unjoined geometry? There we go. The option to put a void in the family. So now I can do just the cut tool as opposed to the wall or the join tool. Say, hey, cut this by the door rather than joining the two walls. The other advantage of that is in case like this where I've got, my own individual model based family or my own individual, these are not walls, these are generic model or casework families in my case, families, I could actually use that cut tool for anything now. I'm like, God, this is brilliant. How have I never thought of this before? What am I, an idiot? But then when I added those voids in here, and here's my question to you guys, does this matter? When I go through and look at it, I've added those voids. So when you hover over it, you see the voids and they're parametric for depth, whatever you want them to be. But I have these voids in here and now you see them. And when you select the door, you see the voids. So my question is do people get offended that you can see the voids when you select the doors or you hover over the doors? You don't get them when you're using like the align command or the dimension command. If I go in to do a dimension, right, I'm not going to see those voids to accidentally dimension to it on the door. Even if I'm trying to use the tab key, whatever, it's not going to find those voids for me. It's only going to look for the reference planes that are nested into that family, etc. So I guess for me is that a good enough, or is that a better solution to have these, and is the void built into the family worth it? So I don't know, you guys can hit me up in the chat. That was kind of one of the things I was going into it. And Michael said, yeah, but your tile is going to go through the frame. Yeah, but not with the void tool. So if I use the join geometry, the tile technically, and again, I can just go through here and do the uncut again, uncut this by this, and then I'll do the join this wall to this wall, right? So yeah, the thin tile would run through, and sometimes like you'll even see here, it just lost the line for the gypsum board because I probably have the gypsum board in this family as a finished one, or they're both the same finish or the same level in there. So not sure what you think, but the reason I really liked it is like Michael had asked the question of, now I can actually cut it where I want it to be cut. So I don't know. You guys can feel free to chime in if you want to unjoin those two things and then use the cut tool. It's the same amount of steps, either joining or cutting. I guess the difference would be if I had 5 doors on here, I'd have to cut each door as opposed to using the join tool. All 5 door openings would come through. But so that's just my thought. I came up with it. I added it to one of my doors. I'm like, do I want to continue with this down my whole door library and add these voids? Or do I want it to be something else? And Melissa threw ideas in there. Hey, what if you made those nested voids? Would they work? Can that go through? Unfortunately, I didn't find a way to do it. I didn't spend a ton of time to research into it, because the way this was done is I just put void families in the door that aren't cutting anything. So you can see there's a void family front and back in this door. And then in the family itself, I just have cuts with void when loaded checkbox check. So that's all I got. That was it. Just a question for you guys. If you want to think about it, respond in the chat at some point in time saying yes or no to the door voids. Not sure what you guys think. Simon saying, will this break for if clicked on shared? No, if it's a shared door, it'll still work. So if I go edit the family and I say this door is shared, the voids are still going to be there. The door is then going to be able to be nested into other things or scheduled. But no, that's not going to change anything on the door or the cut tool when you go through. The cuts with void, the way that works, shared or not shared, is you can then use the cut tool within the project on any void that is not actually cutting anything within the family. So no, won't break, Simon. So if your doors are all set to shared and you like the idea, that will still work, as you can see.
So it's mostly a matter of if you're offended by seeing the void.
Yep. I literally couldn't decide. I think it's worth it personally, but if I'm giving it to an architect who hires out the interiors and never do the interiors, then they would probably hate to see all of that. Like, what is this stupid dots and what is that? Why do I see this? You know, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I feel like I'm with Michael. Like,
Beth is clapping, so I'm
functionality
assuming
is awesome, but people are gonna be whiny about it.
And Mike says the technician in me loves the simplicity of it, but I guess that my 30% squeakiest wheels are going to hate. That was exactly my comment too, Michael. Like there's going to be that percentage of people that are just going to be like, oh my God, I hate this, I can't stand it. And especially if you're talking like the architects who don't do the interiors, they're gonna be like, why the hell do I see this in the doors? The interior people are gonna be, you know, falling in love with this. So I'm kind of at that same scenario of not sure if I want to build that into mine or not. This is not Burger King. You can't always have it your way. Yeah,
It's not even their slogan anymore. I don't even know.
Well, I'm doing a Revit for interiors at Digital Built Week, so at the Built conference, and I was kind of like, I'm going to show this there, and either everybody's going to tell me it's great or horrible. We'll kind of see when we get more people there. For now, I think I'm going to go ahead and leave it in there.
Yeah, you can look around and see if they all look horrified or really excited.
Yeah, I'm going to show this to a couple of my clients this week. I don't know if I want to go edit the door library I've created for them for this, but we'll see what they think. Cool. So that's all I have. Looks like there might be a couple of questions. So what do we got on deck there, Melissa?
Let's go. We'll start with Tom's. Tom's asking, what are the advantages and disadvantages to stacked walls?
Don't ever use a stacked wall. So this advantages of disadvantages of stacked walls. The biggest disadvantage of a stacked wall is you cannot control the connectivity, the joins to other walls when they come into play. I had one client that did a stacked wall where they wanted it to be modeled perfectly. So every time there was like a bump out in the brick, they modeled it as a 6-inch tall stacked wall. So they had a brick that had like a 2-inch air gap and another brick that had a 2 3/4 inch air gap, right? And they stacked it all the way up the building. So the stacked wall was made up of like 30 stacks, right? And when they were drawing their building and they had, right, it's just gypsum board on the inside. When they came to like an inside corner like this, I should probably not be doing this with a finished tile wall. But when they came into an inside corner on something like this was all like the exterior wall. And then when they drew another wall on the inside and they came here like this with the wall on the inside, the join here was very jacked up, which you wouldn't think it would because all the stacked walls lined up on the inside. But in the elevation, we kept seeing like all these zigzaggedy, jaggedy, weird lines showing up. And they're like, how do I fix that? I'm like, you don't, because you are not in control of a join condition on a stacked wall. Personally, for me, I've only been on a project where I suggested using them once, and the only place that it was in a building that had the elevated floors, right? So we had the raised floor system at like 2 feet, and everywhere there was a wall, they had to install a metal plate underneath it, and the elevated floor was always 2 feet. So we had like a 1-inch thick join there, and we used it on that project, and it was on every single interior, and it worked okay. There were a couple scenarios where you tried to use it, it didn't work, but for that case, it was all identical. It was all exactly the same. It was what you wanted to do. That's what you went through and did, and it wasn't bad. Any other time I've had clients say, hey, I need to go in and, I'm going to model it with CMU 3 feet, then brick on top of that. Oh, but then over here it's 4 feet. And then over here, so they have like 5 different types of stacked walls. It will fail.
Yeah.
Now, one command that I don't know if everybody does know, if I do come in here and choose a stacked wall, see, in my template even says use sparingly stacked walls.
How do you feel about stacked walls, Brian?
How do I feel about stacked walls? Let's just look at my stacked wall type.
I'm gonna go rename ours. I will cut you.
Sweet. I even have it set up so I can't even draw it because I have the stupid stacked wall type too small. What I was going to say is if you grab a stacked wall and you right click on it, there will be a command that comes up in your right click context menu called break apart. We'll go ahead and try to do this. Stacked wall, edit type, edit. And I know why it's actually broken.
It's only going at 4 feet. So maybe if you just made your wall taller than 4 feet.
That's what I was doing. I thought it was because I made the sample height less than what it needed.
In your properties, you're literally trying to get 4 foot.
Here we go. Level 2, 0. There we go. Here's my stacked wall. So if you grab a stacked wall and you right click, you will see you get one called breakup. My analogy on this is like a divorce. Even though you're no longer together, there is still going to be lingering shit happening for the rest of your life. Because I've used the breakup command with a client who did a project with all stacked walls, we then broke them all up, and they still had very bizarre join conditions happening. So my analogy on it is it should be called.
So you're going to have baggage.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a clean breakup. Just don't do it.
It's not going to be a clean breakup. It's a divorce. And then so they did the breakup, and here I'll do it in 3D so you kind of see, oh, breakup. And now I see that, hey, this wall's unconnected at 10 feet. If I come back and say, hey, no, let's go make it 9 feet, cool. Then I have to grab this wall and be like, oh, it was unconnected. It had a 10-foot offset. I do have to come back and start playing with this. But I still had weird issues where like the join conditions were having issues with those ones. So I then had to come in and be like, oh, let me move this wall off here, get rid of all join conditions, and then bring it back in. So there were still some scenarios of, well, yeah, we still had some issues there. Now I'm going to undo my break wall panels. And the reason why I'm going to undo that is the other reason why I'm not a big fan of this is, let's say you go in here and you put in a door, and go edit this wall type. You can see I don't really use these, so I don't really have the structure. We're going to go make this bottom one like 2 feet tall. And we're going to change the above one to be something thinner. So the thing you're going to start to notice is that this wall, the door that I hosted, since the door does come in here, it is going to pick up on the thickness of the base wall by default. Now you can pick this, and you will notice that if you are using stacked wall, you'll get pick primary host. So then I can choose and say, no, that was the primary host. So now the thickness of my door jamb is going to go to the thickness of the primary host, not the thickness of the other host. So you can swap those out. So if you are using stacked walls, you get additional tools like breakup or other tools that you might need to start coming in here and playing. The other problem when you start looking at this is I can tag and grab just one of the wall parts. I can grab the top half of the wall, but you also then can't use phasing. So I can't demo out the top phase or the bottom phase or anything when we start doing things like that, because each individual wall is tied to its parent wall, basically the overall wall assembly itself. So you can run into problems when you're starting to get into these in the phasing aspect. A couple other things when you get in there and you started as well. And if I recall, is there something I think there's something with schedules that was broken, like this property won't schedule if it's a stacked wall. Yeah, I'm not sure. Oh, see, I see a whole bunch of people in chat now saying, yeah, don't use them.
Yeah, tagging is always a fun one going through and filtering.
Well, you could tag them. You just have to use the tab key. Am I incorrect in that? Yeah, so you can see I'm getting the base wall or the upper wall with my wall tag. So you can tag them. You just might have to use the tab key or be very, very particular in where you're putting your mouse.
A lot of the times they're similar thicknesses. So I'm saying tag the entire wall.
Well, and my cut plane is below me, so right now I can see both of those walls. But if you have like the stacked wall 4 feet and you're cutting it 3 feet, then you're not going to be able to see the wall above to even tag it.
Yeah, and that's usually what happens on
yeah. It's like I said, I can't answer all the issues with this because I've had so many issues with this that I have just decided that, hey, no, I'm never going to use these again.
Yeah.
I don't even think you get stacked walls.
Pointing out you can't mark them as structural, so that's it has been a while since I've actually used one in anger on purpose. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of the comments saying use it if it's very simple. Maybe an existing condition where you're not going to need to tag and schedule and do all that jazz. We get to put this on the list of Revit things that seem like a good idea, but bring along more issues than they're worth.
Well, that's one of the things too that I do want to talk about, and it's kind of funny that this got brought up. So this is one of the things that I always like to talk about too. Is like when I look at this, I see a lot of people trying to do something like this as a stacked wall, which I've never understood. And you even said if your walls are the same thicknesses. If your walls are the same thicknesses, you do not have to use a stacked wall. You can do a vertically compound wall. What a vertically compound wall is, if I go edit the type of this wall, when you go to edit the structure, there's all these tools that you have down here. Most people have never used the first 4. You might have used sweeps and reveals. I rarely see anybody using the modify, merge, assign, or split region tools. And what that gives you, in this case is just my finish, I have a 6-inch base in here. You can see that I have both layers of my walls here, my T1 and my T2. They're both finished 2 layers, but the thickness of these are grayed out. Because what you can do is if you're in a section preview to get these to line up, you can come down here and do what's called a split region. And if I come down here and say, hey, I want to go ahead and split this region right here at 10 inches, try that again. I've now got a split region here at 10 and 3 inches. And when I do that, notice that the layer I did it in said, ooh, this is variable. So now I've got my T2 here, my T1 here, and this here. If I wanted to add a new finish to this, I can insert a new layer. I'll go ahead and call this finish 2. We'll give it a material of something god-awful so we can see it. We'll grab this brown material. But I do not assign this a thickness. Because without a thickness being assigned here, now I can come down here and say, I want to grab that layer, and I want to assign that layer to this scenario. So now you'll notice my thickness automatically picked up, and I've now split this wall with another 10 3/4 inch area inside of there. So if they're the same thickness, you can continue to split this as many times as you want and add different materials you need and you want to see inside of there. All right. If there's multiple layers to this, this is where it can kind of get really, really bizarre. I'm going to go insert another layer. Sure, I'm going to leave it for structure 1. I'm going to go say there's a 3 inch, not 3 feet thickness there, right? So I've now put this here. I'm going to go ahead and move it down just because I wanted to, right? So now you can see I've got this big thick layer in here that's just by category at 3 inches. You can also do merge regions. So if you really, really, really wanted to, I could come grab my merge region, and when I grab a line, which material am I merging which direction? So right where I just put in that directional display material, I'm going to be like, ooh, take the one in the back and move it to the right, or take the one in the right and move it to the back. But technically, then I can start doing bizarre things like this. So if you had something like, oh, this is a concrete wall and we're putting different stucco in there or whatever you want, again, you could now start merging that. You will see that once I did that, I get this, this becomes a 0 value again because I merged it. So I would have to delete that layer out of there. But now I can come in and say, okay, okay. And now when I'm looking at that wall, it's whatever the core material was is now added to that point there. So you can merge these things back and forth and start doing some really bizarre things in these vertically compound walls. I would never do what I just showed you, but yeah, it is the case that you want to do there. I'm just going to undo that. The other thing that also becomes bizarre is like, this is cool, but the whole wall was 3/8 of an inch, and we've decided to switch to 1/2 inch tile. How do I change that? The funny part is, if you want to change the thickness, first time I'm like, man, you got to delete the layers, get a thickness, change the thickness, re-add the layers, and do it all. Until I realized you can actually give the modify button. So if you didn't want this to be 10 3/4, you can grab this horizontal grip with the modify. You got to grab that horizontal line, and now you can be like, cool, let me go ahead and change this. Or you grab the vertical line, get that 3/8 of an inch there, and say, no, cool, let me change the thickness. And that is how you change the thickness to all of them. So if you are trying to change the thickness of all these, you grab the modify, grab any of the back lines, change that thickness to be whatever you want it to be, and you can start going through and playing it. You'll also see that if you grab the modify on one of the horizontal split lines, you get a little arrow. That little arrow says, where's that dimension coming from? This dimension is coming from the bottom and going up. If I click the little arrow, I can make that dimension always be 3'6" from the top. Or if I wanted to change that value and say, no, always be 2 feet from the top, now I can go through and start setting that up. I tell people to try not to do both scenarios, one from the top and one from the bottom, because if you now make the wall less than 2'6", it's going to freak out because it can't make a 0 height area inside of there. But you do have a lot of ways to play with those vertically compound walls without having to use a stack.
Very good. Well, there's a question on if you can still pull quantities.
Yeah, this is truly material quantities on all of this. So if I were to go do a finish schedule, which I already have one, finish schedule. I don't think I have areas and volumes, but you'll start to see in here, I have that directional display. Let me go in here and add fields. Let me add an area. We'll just put it after the name. Material area. Say okay. VLC. Oh, I gotta calculate totals on that. Formatting. Material area. Calculate totals. Okay. So now that directional display is 5185. If I go back over here and modify that height, edit the structure, grab my modify, grab the horizontal line. Let's just flip it. The buttons in here are really hard to get to because if you misclick, then you get rid of it. So you got to kind of like see them highlight. It's very bizarre where you have to click sometimes. Not saying this is easy, still modify. And you don't want to ever hit escape in this dialog box. Screw it. We'll just modify it again and we'll just change the value from the top to be 6. Say okay, say okay. Go back to my schedule. And now we are at 34. So yeah, materials completely work on this. It does do it. It is replacing material and swapping out. It is not like the decal where it's sticking it on top of. This is truly going to give me what we're going through and setting up there.
Nice. It was a lovely one.
So a little bit off topic from the stacked wall question, but yes, you do have other options if your walls are going to be the same thickness. And then if you didn't notice on that wall, there was a sweep at the top. Sorry, just in case I was like, it does have it there. So I did add a sweep to the top of my wall. That's how I'm getting those stupid little tile blow nose bump out there.
Yeah, I think we still kind of have a fight with people that don't want to do separate finish walls. And it's so much easier to control your joins. And everybody always thinks, oh, it's always going to be the same. It's always going to be a 4-foot tile running across. And then 2 minutes later, it's like, oh, except in this one place where we've got this base tile, and in this other one where they want it to be this other. I think,
Yeah, yeah. I did notice in the comments, somebody said you can't mark your wall to be structural. If you tab select the individual wall pieces, you can come back and say they're structural. So I could grab just the base wall and say that's structural. I don't know why you would have a base wall that's structural, but again, it's a whole lot of tabbing to get to the other wall portion to change if it's structural or not structural.
Yeah. I don't know, has anybody had any good experiences with stacked walls? I feel like the comments, it seemed like everybody's had a similar, oh no.
Well, I have the warming hut file that I know everybody who's ever worked with me that I did this week back in 2005 with the US Forest Service, but I do have a project. It's literally a warming hut. So the building's like 12 feet by, it's a weird T-shaped building, but it's like a tiny little building where the exterior material was exactly the same all the way around. I used a stacked wall. It was like, it's a tiny building, it's here. But I then had finishes on the inside. So the inside wall finishes were all done with individual walls. So all my interior finish was different than my exterior. But I did do the core, the metal, whatever it was at the bottom, and the whatever it was at the top, all as a stacked wall going around. But then everything inside was its own wall. So it was like 5 walls to do it. But yes. I tried using them years ago, but I just led to yelling and crying.
Doesn't everything though, really?
I forget who asked that question since I went on so long, but hopefully that answers your question, Tom. And you did ask if I can put that to my blog. It might already be on my blog, Tom. I might have talked about it. If not, I'm writing a paper up for it for Built. So once I get that written, I'll add some of that to my blog.
Well, semi-related, since we were looking at materials, but that's asking if there's any insights on the crashing material editor issue.
I thought theoretically there was a point release that fixed the crashing material editor.
I
thought I recalled in one of the
allegedly.
point release. I thought I recalled in one of the point releases of one of the years it theoretically fixed that. Am I incorrect in that? I don't know. The biggest thing I always tell people when they come into the material browser, I'm in 24, so I haven't changed this yet. I never show material icons. First off, do I really care? And is this really going to help me in this tiny little thumbnail icon, how the display is going to be? So for me, I am usually set up as text view only. I don't usually have the icons turned on. And there's 2 reasons for this. One, every time you have an icon on there, Revit, when you open up the dialog box, has to regenerate all of those icons, right? So if you're set up here to like thumbnail view and you're seeing all these giant pieces here, it's going to regenerate all of those. So for me, I am always in text view. I do the same thing on the appearance. For me, I see people grabbing this and pulling it down like this because they want their appearance to be really, really giant and large. I don't care 90% of the time when I'm working on appearance. I drag it all the way up to where there's nothing there. Literally, I drag it all the way up because I don't want to see that appearance. By doing that, I'm not having Revit being forced to render every single time I'm switching from material or opening up the material dialog box, all of those different views. So for me, I always do it small. I almost never have those open. If I opened up my 23 materials, I'm probably set just like this to not see anything in the appearance tab and not see those in the dialogue there. So for me, that's the big thing. But as for it crashing, I don't really, yeah, I'm just thinking 22. Yeah, I don't know if I've had the big issue in that, but that would be my first thing is try having everybody eliminate all of the thumbnails so you don't actually see that information when you're coming in here. While we're on here, I always like to throw tips about other things too, is you did see me come up to the little, I'm going to call this one options right here. A lot of people don't even know this exists. They've never clicked on this little drop down where you can change it from thumbnail list to text. The other thing that's really cool on here is if you are doing the thumbnail size, which I would really hate, I have seen a few people discover they can do this. Again, never, ever, ever would I have the giant thumbnail views in
Super
here. But I know
helpful.
I see some people that's like up with their second monitor and they've got this giant thing up here. So you can change your icon status. So for me, I usually do it teeny tiny. So if somebody does come over here and do this, it's like, oh, I can't see shit in there. But I just keep it back in text view. But the other thing up here that a lot of people don't know is, do you realize that you can actually say, just show me the ones in use, show me the ones that are unused. There's a pre-built-in tool up here to filter your materials. So a lot of people don't know this either, that, oh, I can go show all of them in the documents, the ones that are just currently in use in my project, or, only the unused ones. So I always think that's kind of a nice little feature as well. And then over here, next to the project materials, there's a filter. If you were setting up all of your materials like I do, I set all of my interior materials because system classification as interior. So if I grab an interior material, it says interior. So this class you can actually create for the filter up here. So you can start coming down like, ooh, I want all my structural materials. You can see I've got my structural materials. I've got all the analytical materials inside of here. So as my end users come in, hey, gee, you can just go to whichever category you want to be looking at.
That's lovely.
Just a couple other things about that material dialogue that I don't ever see anybody using. I just wish we could schedule the class. It would be so much nicer instead of having to create some bullshit filter for all the materials that my interiors people need. It's right there. Let me use it.
Yeah. Let's see. Since we're diving into things, how about parts? Beth's asking, what are your thoughts on parts? I've used them successfully, brought up with users, and they seem vehemently opposed to the idea. Have they gotten any better, or are all the old gotchas still there?
The parts are the same. They originally introduced parts, and the only change that they've made, to my knowledge, the parts are you can part through a link. Desiree actually did a project when she was like 2 companies ago, but she actually it was a tilt-up concrete or something building, and she literally took the architect's concrete walls, created parts through the link. So if they updated the wall, her parts would update. And then she literally just said, hey, great, now I'm going to only display parts. These are all my concrete walls, etc. So she could do it. She could then manipulate the parts, etc. I do have some clients who use, depending on the size of the building, I would not say on a giant building, but one of my clients, it was a precast building and they wanted to show all the precast panel joints, etc. So they drew everything with walls, and then they parted those walls out, and they were able to play with the parts, making joins, etc., to get it to work. The big thing on that is you have to let everybody in your team know what you're doing, because if I go grab a wall and I say, go create parts from this wall, oh my God, I'm not used to the new icons. Go create parts in this, right? What happens is your view says, hey, let me show you the parts here. Every other view is set up to say show original. So you don't see the parts unless you come over here and say, hey, I want to see what's going on with the parts. But once you part this out, I'm going to do the same thing to this wall too. This wall, I'm going to go ahead and part it out as well. But now you can start coming here and really playing with what's going on. So like in a precast building, we came in here and started playing with the join condition in this corner. Somebody needed to see what's going on there. We started adding reveals. The nice thing about parts when you're starting to get into them is the way you can subdivide them. So if you're like, man, I wanted to show the gypsum board coming down right here or whatever exterior finish, you can grab that part and you can say you want to divide it. So when I divide that part, you can divide it by intersecting references. So any levels you happen to have, or possibly any grids, or if you drew reference planes, you could start coming through here and doing this with reference planes as well. So named reference planes, obviously. So as you start coming through here and doing all this, like the client who needed to do the building, like, hey, east and west, we're dividing it equally on each side. They drew reference planes, called it, east-west break 1, east-west break 2, whatever. And they were able to then start subdividing those parts just by the intersecting references. If you don't have intersecting references, you can then start dividing them by a sketch. Once I say finish, and then once I say finish, nothing will be divided. I messed it up trying to do it in 3D. I'll just say cancel, go back to floor plan, or go into an elevation, which started in the front. Yeah, I got too much going on here. Which wall did I divide? Let's just grab this and turn on the section box. Cool. So you can divide the parts, subdivide the parts. You can really start getting into it. So a lot of my clients are doing like tilt-up construction with this. They draw one long 200-foot long wall, divided in 10-foot sections. When you divide a part, let me try this again. Divide parts. Edit sketch. And that's probably got to be perpendicular. Finish. There we go. When you divide a part, you have a part division, you're going to see you can actually automatically add a gap, or you can even bring in profiles, which I don't have a profile on this template. So I can do a 1-inch gap. And so I have this part divided, and you can start coming through and setting that up. So you can bring in custom profiles, you can flip the profiles, you can do what you need to do on those. You can even assign a global parameter to what the gap needs to be if you have that. So going through and setting this up on like the precast building, it worked great. They just went through, set it up, all the parts were divided. And then in additional scenarios where they might need to divide the parts like at a door or a window to show seams coming up, then they would just go in and subdivide that other part. So now you can see, ooh, here's this part. Then I could go edit the division of this part. I could go edit the sketch. I think I could change the work plane if I needed to go vertical, but you get the point here. I could finish that out and then have another division. So you can start subdividing, dividing, or even around the corner like this here. Maybe you wanted this to be represented as a single part. So if I grab this one, I can say divide parts. I can add this part to it, finish, and now it's not going to let me divide it. But a lot of times for like concrete buildings around the corner, then we can start merging these parts together and get them to do what they needed to do. So they're great. They work fairly well. There is a lot of nuances that everybody has to know to use them and do them efficiently. Where I really like them are finished floors. So if you're trying to go in like, man, I've got a finished floor here. The majority of the finished floor is tile 1. We're going to inlay a tile 2 occasionally and randomly. You do it on the floor, then you can just divide the part, draw a few rectangles in it. So we'll go make this a part. We'll go ahead and divide parts. I'm going to draw a little rectangle in here at sketch. Sure, I would probably be snapping on tile lines, you get the point. But now I've got this part inside of here, and I can take this part. You can then start changing the phasing. You can start changing the material. Ooh, I didn't want that to be tile 1. And that little area right there, I wanted this to be tile 2. Right? So it does subdivide that part. It allows you to play with what's going on material-wise. You can also then start coming in and saying, oh, show me the shape handles. So then once you get shape handles, if for whatever reason, you could then make that part thicker. Horrible example on a finished floor, but like over here on the wall, ooh, I wanted this one wall piece to be thicker. This chunk of concrete needs to bump in, this concrete needs to bump out, whatever. I can start then just, it's still basic part of the original wall, but now I've said make this one part thicker. You can then subdivide the parts behind it and merge parts. So you can even show like the concrete wrapping back in at openings if you need to. So like I said, they do great on smaller projects. I would not be doing this on some sort of giant project. The one project I have in mind that last client successfully used this on the entire project, it was an air traffic control tower for the Pentagon. So it had 2 fire station bays and an air traffic control tower. That was it. Pretty small little building, but all these precast and fun design stuff they had to put into it. So it worked really, really well to go through and set it up. And again, you have to tell people, because if you come back here and say, ooh, go back and show original, I don't see the different tile in there. I don't see the split and the different thicknesses over here. So people do need to know that, hey, parts are happening and what's going on. And again, if I take this whole wall and just move it, move the wall, probably not past my section box. That was a dumb way to move it. You don't see anything happen here, but if I go back to the parts, then you'll see all those parts did go along for the ride. And that can happen through links. So hopefully that answers the question for depth.
So here's the opposite. Here's a thing that not many people do use, but could be way more helpful.
Well, and when they developed parts, that was part of their construction solutions, right? That was before they came out with like fabrication parts. It was their original thing. It's like, hey, a contractor could take an architect's model and break that concrete wall going up the shaft into parts by levels, and then they could start, using that in their own Revit model, or take that concrete slab, another great snare for it, divide it into parts and start showing all your control joints. So I have structural engineers who model one slab, break it into parts for just showing all the construction joints. So you could do it that way as well. And that was the theoretical thing of Autodesk when they did it. is, ooh, you can break this into parts. It's part of our construction BS thing they did way back when.
Yeah, I do remember them parading that around.
So what we got next?
Let's see. Oh, should we do the multi-level stair question?
Or,
I know there's no railing questions, so we should get a railing question in there. So with the multi-level stairs, can the levels be different distances apart? And the answer is yes now.
yes. Yeah, they can be. If you, let's just come over here. Let me turn off my section box. Over here. I don't think I do have levels on. Just copy this level up. What ends up happening, and it might be a little bit crazy, that's 16. We should probably go make this like 34. So not, oops, not 34, but 134. So what happens inside of here where they can be, if you go do multi-level stairs, so I'm going to go back here to level 1. We're going to go do architecture. We're going to go do stairs. Level 1, level 2, perfect. We got 13, 14, 15, perfect. Come back here to do this. Sweet. I missed it. God dang it. I clicked when it was there. All right. So then you grab the stairs and you can say, hey, I want this to be a multi-story. Again, you have, I hate the fact you can't do this in like the floor plan. Select levels. I want it to go up to level 3 as well. Say finish. What you're going to see happening is if I tab select into this stair, the actual risers are 32 and they're 6 3/4. And if I tab select into this one, there's only 28 and there's 6 and something else. So it does go through and start adding the more stairs, the more what you need to it. You just don't know where it's going to add them. And if we look at this to the side, you can see it just added them to the end. So
like
it will add the stairs. It will change. What was that?
It tries to keep the landing in the same spot.
Yes, it tries to keep the landings where they are and it just adds them to the end of the stair where it is. So they can work for you. Personally, for me, I'm not a big fan of multi-level stairs. When I get into multi-level stair, I use it really in schematic design phases. I want to do them really, really early on, but I'm not going to get into these in DD or definitely not in CD. I'm going to take the stairs, break them apart, and model them on a floor-by-floor basis so I can control. But yeah, it's SD. I need to get this done. I need to show some stairs in there really quick. Go to town on it.
Yeah, I mean, you can edit and kind of change where you could change the height of the landing and change which side they.
Yeah, you can tab select, get to the edit stair. You can start changing things in there if you need to. So like if I come down here and delete the landing out of here because we added 2 in there, right? I got to be in the floor plan to see this. And of course, I didn't go to level 2.
I think you need to just, you don't need to delete the landing, do you?
Unlimited.
I usually use the little draggy handles.
Yeah. So now I come in here, if I grab the arrow handle, it'll just shift the stair basically. It'll bring it down to like that, right? And then I can say, that's cool. Now I need to go do a landing from here to here. So I still got the 32 stairs. I now have a number I can pull back where I wanted that to be. So you can still tweak the stairs independently and get them to do what you wanted them to do. But you do then have to go back. And I'm kind of like, well, if I'm going through and doing all that, what is the point of a multi-story stair in my mind? And in reality, here you're going to have a landing, but up here you'd be the top landing. So you need the rail to return back over there. So like I said, I use these often in schematic design, but I don't go, I don't think I've ever had a multi-story stair in a finished project.
Yeah.
But again, it's all, remember, it's about the tab. You can still edit each individual one and start tweaking what you want to do.
Yeah. And I do remember at some point, if you've edited the stair and then, well, we've got a couple questions on adding. So one was a question on adding if you place the first level and then you have to extend it to a basement. But
oh yeah, you can do that. So if I come over here, grab a level.
It does weird things. And I don't remember which way, if it takes the way you've edited or if it takes the way it started.
So we'll add a level below. We'll come in here, grab these. Say disconnect. We'll connect it to the level basement. Finish. And again, I made that one even shorter, so it just took stairs off of the end of this one.
Yeah.
So I've got a 10, a 16, and a 12, or something like that. 12, 16, and 14, whatever. Different spacing on those, but it still theoretically works as a multi-story stair.
And it would work with the same height, different heights. Yeah, I think that's the only thing I figured is that it tries to keep your landing in the same spot. And that's
Your start point and your start point, and your landing, and it tries to do everything else after that. And again, and Autodesk, when they touted, when they fixed these, like, oh look, then you can come in here and edit this one stair. And I'm like, then what the hell is the point of a multi-story stair, except for the fact that when I select it, it selects it as a single entity. If I'm literally tab selecting to change every single one of them, I personally don't see the advantage. But that's just me. And is it possible to convert this down to a multi-story stair?
it needs a breakup.
There was something, I don't believe there is like a breakup or a right click, or, you know, like with the trusses, remove truss or remove beam system. There is not a tool like that. It was in beta and it was a discussion, because it was like, yeah, if I could use this tool to slap me a stair together really quick on every floor, that would be awesome. Honest truth, even in schematic designs, a lot of times I draw one stair, I copy it to the clipboard, I paste to the next level, I paste to the next level, and that's how I do my stairs. So for me, it's often copy, draw one, get it the way you want it, and then copy to clipboard, paste to a level, and do it that way.
Mm.
And again, like I said, once you tab select and add all of them, I really don't get it, other than the fact they select together, and I really just don't get that. What we got for our another?
Rick was saying he was trying a scenario where he had a second level that was only 1/3 the distance from the first one. So landings with the first, only one with the second set.
Yeah, if you've got multiple landings, no, it doesn't really work. So if you're doing a multi-landing stair, I mean, that's not going to freaking work with stairs in general in Revit. Well, stairs will be okay. The rails will just completely.
Yeah, the railings.
But so yeah, when you start talking about that, then no, I mean, if that's the case, it's not even worth the multi-story stair. Just draw it in, copy to clipboard, tweak what you need to tweak. And like you saw when I did the upper stair, I don't think a lot of people know you can just delete the landing, adjust your second run, and then put the landing back in if it's a really simplistic landing. And again, I don't waste too much time in schematic designs on stairs, because they always change. I make sure I have the clearance for all of them, so I have a large enough stair shaft. And honest truth, I usually make them bigger than they need to be. So when everything goes to hell and we've got to start tweaking them and make them real, and we realize handrails don't work, I've got additional space. Like rarely for me, my default stair is 12-inch tread depth. So when everybody's drawing them, they get an extra, oh, so now we had 6 treads. I just grew 6 inches in my stair shaft if I need it. So for me, my default stair is bigger than it should be, because we never have enough room in a damn stair shaft as we start doing things and tweaking it out in an actual project.
So why do you delete the landing when you adjusted the stairs?
Well, like the one here, when I wanted to get rid of that run and move that run back, so we'll do it back down here on this one.
Yeah, but I guess
tab select.
I swear I've done it without deleting the landing, so that's why.
You can sometimes, but sometimes, like, so if I were to just to grab that arrow here, it would have actually started adding down here. So if you grab the arrow,
you
it'll.
were just trying to do it for the one run.
Yep, just for the one run. But again, I
What's
could have
the-
just used the arrow
arrow
keys
and
and
the
nudged
dot?
it. I could have done that and it'll work too. Or I could have used the move command. That will work as well. Just usually I'm like, the landings start to freak out and I'm like, I don't even want to deal with them. Let me just delete the landing, do what I need to do to the stair, and then just, you know, it's just literally landing, pick, and I'm done.
Right, that's fair. But I feel playing with it, there's the arrow and there's the dot.
Correct.
So
The arrow adds, the arrow shifts, the dot adds or takes away from the run you're on. The arrow shifts it to the previous run or the beginning of the current run.
right.
So if I were to grab that without deleting landing and move the arrow here, it would add runs down here. If I'd have grabbed the dot and did it, the dot would have just taken some away here and I would have been 2 treads short. I could have just hit the move command and unmove, probably would have been easier and moved it 22 inches, but whatever.
All right, just wondering if you knew some super exciting trick I didn't with
Well,
deleting the landing.
Well, one thing that always cracks me up is a lot of people don't know. I'm gonna go just. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. I'm going to tab select and control drag. I just want a copy of this there. What a lot of people don't know is, oh, you can't copy it that way. Fine, I'll go back to level one and just draw a new stair over here. What a lot of people don't even know about stairs that I've done some pretty crazy, just things you would never do with stair type stairs. Sure, I don't know if we're gonna do this. That you can have multiple runs come off of the same thing. So if you wanted to come up here with another Y, you can either mirror this, but if you want to do something slightly different, you just have to look at the run and realize that the base height of this one starts at 8 feet or whatever value it's giving us. So now when I go do my new run, I can switch up here to runs and say, hey, that's cool, but the base height needs to start at 8 feet. And then if I come off of here and be like, ooh, I wanted to do that. And I want to go back in here. Crap, what's the height of this one? Top height is this. Let me go do another run with my run is going to be here now. Then I can come in here and do this. Throw my landing between the two. Say finish, and I can do that all as one stair. So as long as you're paying attention to the properties of each run, and when you're drawing the run, you're paying attention to the relative base height, you can add as many stairs you want to the off of the runs, etc.
The code official's gonna love that stair. Guaranteed.
I had to do this a lot with residential clients. I got a lot of residential homes where they come down or curve around and it's off of one landing or whatever. So
yeah, you probably can't tell. I've been dealing with a lot of multifamily lately, right? Like, everybody's gonna die right there.
That's residential. Only the homeowner, only one person or two people die. It's not hundreds of people. We're okay with that.
It's their own fault. Perfect. Let's see. Should we switch plumbing ways? So we have a question on if there are any good families for downspouts that aren't a pain to work with bends.
And I actually laughed, and I'm trying to see if I can find my family for this. And I know my MEP people, and Jason's going to hate this. When I go into it and do this, I do it as ductwork. So you actually ask, can flex duct be used?
Yes.
I'm going to go insert and load a family real quick. Insert, load family. And it is going to break in my template because my template has not been set up for this. So let me go grab one of my clients' things that I've created for them. I thought I created one for myself, but I can't find it lately. Families, volume 22. I just got to remember where the heck I put it in the form. But basically what I've done, especially for commercial roles, is I've created a collector. It's basically a pipe or a duct fitting. And the reason why I say this is if I have rectangular duct or rectangular downspouts, which is more commercial, I do it as a duct fitting. If I have round duct, I can do it as well. And then I can go through and set it up. But the reason why I like that, and this is probably going to break because I don't have it added to my template, is I can start drawing that stuff in any view. So if I go to my systems tab, I can come up here and say, cool, I want to go ahead and just draw a duct. All right. It's going to ask me what size is the duct. You know, I want to start at level 1. That's fine. I really don't want a 12. Why is this grayed out? There we go. I really don't want a 12 by 12. We'll say like a 4 by 4. Okay. The reason I have a collector is my collector is face-based.
We're still seeing your stair. Okay. I was like, are you on a different Revit or? Okay, there we go.
Okay, I don't know why that paused on me. But so now I can just, I just went to the duct command. I'm saying go 4 by 4. I don't want it as an oval duct. I want it as a rectangular duct, right? And now when I come in here and start drawing this is all cool. But with duct, you can start drawing it in any position you want, right? But what's really, really cool about this is if I go do like a section off of this, make sure that duct sits like 8 feet in the air, right? Let's go put this closer to my building, or we'll just do a section in here where we can see that duct. That's here. Still not used to all the new icons.
They are kind of cartoony.
So I'll go to my view, go into the fine level of detail. I'm going to turn off my crop region and my clipping. No duct. I need to flip my section. There it is. What's great about the duct work, like I was saying, is you can draw in sections. So if I just right click on that grip, I can say draw a duct. And now I can be like, oh, I needed to come down. I told you I probably don't have elbows drawn in here. See what else do I have? See if I can change it to, there we go. Draw a duct. Come down here, come over here, go down this way. And then you're like, oh, but now I need to go the other direction. Switch to an elevation view, start drawing it in elevation view, etc. Now I've done that. And like I said, rather than starting with a horizontal pipe, what I do is I have a collector, so I put that in, or what I'm going to do if I'm going to tap into my downs or my gutters I've modeled on the roof, I have a face-based family that I can go through and just place that face-based family. Then I get the same scenario here is like right-click, draw duct, and now I've drawn my downspout. You could do it as round, you could do it as, the oval, whatever you were thinking for, and now I've drawn those in. I've seen people create some very, very nice parametric crazy families, and I'm like, yeah, no, I just draw duct work. You will get warnings often from this. I don't know if it's still true. You used to get warnings because it was like it can't calculate values. So you had to go into your duct system somewhere, and I don't even remember what it is. You say, don't calculate this. You also should start coming up with a different system type. So you can know or give some sort of value on here, call it your downspout, whatever. So then the engineers can filter out your downspouts or your downspout duct type. So it's not going to be having issues with them. Yeah, that's absolutely what I do. I don't draw or model downspouts. It's always a duct.
I can't believe it's not a railing though. I'm a little bit sad.
Can't do railings vertically. Before we had cable trays in MEP, all my cable trays used to be railings.
Okay, that makes me.
Yeah, I'm talking Revit Systems 1 when they first came out with Revit Systems, or they even called it Revit MEP.
Yeah.
Cool. What's our next question?
All right, so I guess we should stick with plumbing. So Jason's saying, from an MEP standpoint, when we are doing underground plumbing, we need to see where the walls are to run the pipe up into, but don't want to see everything else. How can we utilize the overhead line style because it does not work like Beyond would with the view range depth? First of all, Jason, I'd like to say thank you for actually looking for where the walls are, because I'm pretty sure a lot that I've worked with just put it wherever they want anyway.
Yes, this is true. I don't think you can. That's a great thought, though.
Can you do an underlay?
Well, you could do an underlay, but like his whole point is he wants to be so what Jason was saying with the view range.
The other crap.
I'm going to go change this level to be 96, just so I can know what it is. So that level is 96, and then I need to draw something down on that level. I don't really care what, but we'll just copy this wall. That's a small wall. We'll copy this wall to the clipboard. Copy, paste. Line the selected levels. Level 4, because it's below and I'm really great at that. And let's just go make this unconnected at 2 feet tall. Okay. And then let's move it over because we're not going to be able to see it. So what Jason is referring to, so we've got that wall sitting up here somewhere, we should be able to see it. When we're looking at this and we get into that is in your view range. If you've ever hit this little thing here, the area that's here in the 6, it's between your bottom and your view depth, right? So my view depth right now, I'm going to say go to the level below. When I hit the apply, I'm going to go ahead and see wherever that wall was I copied. Or where did I copy that wall? Who knows? We're going to do this, put one here and change it this way because I have no idea. Unconnect the 2 feet. There we go. So now this wall is going from level 4 unconnected 2 feet tall, and we can see this wall just fine, right? What ends up happening, oh, there it is. There was that wall I had. Is this wall, when we start looking at it, depending on what's happening in that view range, it is going to deal with what's called the beyond line style, right? So you can see it's not fat like everything else. It happens to be lighter shade of gray. In this view, if I come down here to the visibility graphics and I go into line styles, the line style called beyond is what it's looking at. If I go override this color to be something crazy, and I say, okay, now this wall, is going to turn orange, right? So when you are in your view range and you are in the view depth area or the beyond area, so between your bottom and your depth, These things are going to show up to whatever your beyond line style is. By default, it looks at that beyond line style and object styles. That's what it goes through. Here, I changed it to be orange. If I go change my view range now for here to be -2 feet or 3, whatever I type, notice it's going to still look black because now that's no longer in the beyond line style. It is actually within that normal limit. So by making that -2, this wall's right there at the top of that -2. So if I made this wall 2 foot 1 inches tall, then it's no longer going to be orange. So anything within that beyond line style uses it. Jason's question was, can we use the overhead? That would be really freaking cool, but I have no idea. Well, Jason says, can we unmute him? He wants to ask the question. Sure. There you go, Jason.
Yeah, so I know you can do the line work command and change stuff to be using the overhead line, but when you have a big floor plan, you don't want to do that for every single wall
Exactly.
and whatnot. So I was looking to see if there was a better way to do that, faster way to do that.
Yeah, the only way I would be able to do, if you need it for documentation purposes, is create a view that only sees the walls above, everything's turned off and it's in transparent, and then drop that on top of your view on the sheet. But that doesn't help you when you're working.
No, because right
So you
now,
can do your composite.
right
Go ahead.
now our below grade floor plan is set to be like 6 inches above the bottom level to catch the walls so we can see them. But it we have to as fixtures and everything else, furniture, and we have to turn all that stuff off, which we can do in the view template. But it's really not there when they're doing the grade piping.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
The only thing I can think
no
of is
wall.
do like you said, cut your view range like 1 inch above the floor or whatever, and then have a filter create all those walls to be dashed or whatever line style you want. Any
We
wall
could
that
do
starts
that
at
too.
level 1, have a
Yeah,
filter.
that might be.
But like you said,
right.
kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah,
No,
I could do that.
I agree. We should have anything that, is on that beyond line style that's above, be able to pick up on that. That would actually be really nice.
Wait, should we say it? Go to the idea station. I feel like I punched myself in the neck now.
Yeah, I might go with the filter route then, turn everything off and change the walls.
Yeah, you usually have to change your filter in every project to match whatever the architect's level name is.
Or not even a filter, just change the view template projection.
Oh yeah, Rick was asking the same question. What if you set it below and used underlay to look up?
Well, it's gotta have a cut, so you have to cut it at some point.
Yeah, and you still are getting
You
under.
still need
You
a
don't get to choose.
top. You can't have the cut and top at the same.
Yeah, and you don't get to choose line styles for underlay. Cool. All right, what's the next question?
Thanks.
So Rick's asking your thoughts on dark mode.
I personally think dark mode is stupid, but that's just me.
Yep, he said, I'm assuming you're not impressed by it. Yes, that is a very good assumption.
I don't get why everybody's so obsessed with having dark mode stuff. Personally, for me, I like the white screen. When I switched from AutoCAD to Revit, my eyes became so much less strained and less sore at the end of the day because that black background, I've just never, ever understood it. But yeah, I mean, it's not what I wanted. The whole light mode, dark mode scenario, sure, cool. I don't know. I feel like I strain a lot more on this, and then you've got to go back and turn it off under the view tab. Yeah, so I mean, you could do this, so at least your colors still are okay here, but yeah, give it 20 years and everybody like, no, we need to go back to just a white mode. But I don't know. I don't get the big deal of the whole dark mode. I know it's an obsession of some people, and I know, Melissa's coworkers, some of them are like, oh, we've got to have it, and they had a dark mode hack a long time ago for parallax apps.
I
But
kind of liked John's kind of dark mode. I think I liked it better than.
yeah, not a big fan for me. So Cool. All right, 5 minutes late. Do we have any more questions?
We have one from Nick, but he was gonna email you so he can send the picture and then we can chat about it
Cool.
next time.
Yep.
There is one that said what 60+ file format you can use for coordination model. I'm guessing they're asking what file formats you can use for the coordination model.
Any file format that Autodesk Docs will allow you to bring in. So coordination model in 2024, they changed. Prior to 24, it was only NWC files you could bring in. But in 2024, you actually can do coordination models and you can bring them from Autodesk Docs. And when you do them from Autodesk Docs, it's any file you can put on Autodesk Docs. So it could be like SolidWorks files, it could be IFCs if you wanted to, but it's anything that's going to be hosted on Autodesk Docs. As long as Autodesk Docs can preview it, you could then bring it into Revit as a link. So it won't be Revit families because we can't preview Revit families in Docs yet. I've been bitching about this for a decade. So that's kind of scenario on it. I haven't totally got into it yet. I really like the idea of having this. I have not looked in 2024 because previously, if you had a coordination model in there, it was cool. You could see it in Revit, but it didn't render. You couldn't snap to it. There's a whole lot of issues. They did fix that. We can snap to those things. We can actually get properties from those things as BIM 360 would see those projects. Sorry, Autodesk Docs would see those. So it's a great little tool. I did play with it just to see once that I brought a file that I did not upgrade to the current version of the BIM 360 project. I just drag and dropped it up there in Windows Explorer, from Windows Explorer to my Internet Explorer page, browsing that, and then I could actually link in an old Revit file. So it was like a Revit 2018 file I can see in 2024 without having to go through the process of upgrading it. So haven't got into it yet, haven't used it on a real project. It does work. It seems to be working pretty well. And I like the fact, one of the big things to me is like, wow, then I don't have to actually upgrade these Revit projects. And I get people who are constantly, hey, I want to go see this old project. Can you upgrade this old project? I'm like, why? What are you doing? I just need to walk around and browse. Cool. I'll drag it up there. It'll take me 2 minutes. You can open it up in your current version of Revit. Now you actually can go through and browse through that. Yeah, so coordination model is saying FBX and 3ds Max is on the roadmap too. So again, it's anything that your Autodesk Docs would let you see. So whatever file formats Autodesk Docs will let you see, that would be inside of there. And I know personally for me, I had a client who kept giving me SolidWorks files, and I needed to see those SolidWorks files. And I downloaded the SolidWorks viewer, and the SolidWorks viewer was horrible. It was much better to post it in Autodesk Docs and browse and see the file in Docs, and then be able to see it for me to work at Revit. Now I could actually link that in. It would be kind of cool. So any file format that Autodesk Docs gives you a preview on, and when I say preview, what I mean by that is if I come in here and I click the file, I go to the file, if you can preview the file here, those files can be linked in, is what I've been told. I'll be able to link this in into another Revit project. All this isn't RBT, but you get the point. Cool. And with that said, we have one last thing to mention. I don't know if we actually decided on a date, Melissa. Next month's Revit Radio, my wife surprised me with an out-of-town birthday present, so I will not be available for Revit Radio next month. So the question we are trying to come up with is, do we decide, Melissa, are we going to do it on the 30th or the 7th?
I think either works for me. Maybe we can ask our hardcore listeners if they'd rather.
The regulars who come on here, do you guys want to be on here the day after, so on Wednesday or a week early?
Oh, see, Desiree
They don't do this on.
If she says I have time to do it, then I have time to do it, right?
Why not? I'm so confused. Because I'm speaking all day that day and I don't have any times open in that day. So Desiree said, why not do it on the same time at Built? The only day I have open at Built is Saturday. And no one's going to show up on Saturday. So you guys can answer June 30th, I'm sorry, May 30th or June 7th.
Yeah.
And then Simon did ask, do I ever bring in guest speakers? We've had guest speakers. It used to be way back when I was actually at an Autodesk reseller doing this. We had guest speakers often, but when we are at events like Built or whatever, I know Built last year I had Scott Davis and Sasha Crotty Melissa and I were there with Scott Davis and Sasha, and we did have something like that. So it's either that, or I could go all the way until probably the 18th or 19th to do it at Built in like one of the side rooms. So we'll discuss it. Since Tom's the only one, he said May 30th. We'll discuss it and see what's going on. Maybe I'll end up doing it at Built. We'll see. I just know I might not have Melissa at Built because she's going to be too busy doing, her built things.
I know, but if Desiree says I can do it, she's the boss, right?
So, just look for an update, and if you don't see it come in on the fix, don't freak out. We'll put it up there, and we'll try to make sure we send an update, and we'll discuss a little bit further in what days make more sense. I do like doing it live, and maybe we can pull Scott and some other people in from Autodesk again as well. Although that means we can't record that one, because if we're not recorded, they get way more open about what they say.
This is true.
All right, thanks everyone. Thanks as always, Melissa, for joining and keeping me organized and giving your fabulous input. Otherwise, we will see you guys on the next one. And yes, these are recorded, and I'll be posting it to my YouTube channel hopefully tomorrow, if I don't forget. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.